So the year is 2011, and this takes place somewhere in Ohio. Now, this is going to be kind of a comic book edition to start this off, but this is me and my friend Nick. We're out in Ohio Valley somewhere. This is us camping. What's going on here is, like so many other times on our adventure across America, we were sitting in a campground looking out at the horizon, seeing maybe, the darkest storm clouds I've ever seen. Which again, we've seen this before, and all the other times, we stake the tent down, we duct tape things together, we park the car on the tent posts, right, so that it wouldn't roll away. And we had learned at this point, nothing was going to work. There was nothing that was going to save us from this, because at this point we were pros. So instead of taking the usual precautions, we set our tent up. It's the obligatory act, but we knew that when this was all over, we were going to be sleeping in a laundry room somewhere. So we set the tent up just for fun. Our tent door was broken at this point, so it's a little flap there hanging out. And instead of tying things up, stabilizing, making sure everything's secure, we just set up 2 lawn chairs, opened 2 beers, sat back, and let it come. And when it did, it went like all the other times. This is a storm coming in, it's blowing on our tent. We're getting rain on us and all of that. This particular storm was so heavy that it blew our tent away with us inside. So we went tumbling across the campground inside, a giant water balloon at this point. So our tent flap was broken, so we were filling up with water. The flashlight went by, and the batteries were emptied. We were standing in knee-deep water at the end. This is us inside the tent when it finally came to a stop. We're just 2 silhouettes getting rained on. And there in the distance was the laundry room. And I should remind you, this is the only place with a light on in the middle of this Ohio Valley in the dark of night. So when we went inside, that light seemed to have attracted every bug, every single one. So the ceiling was covered in them. And we threw our wet sleeping bags on the floor, on our wet airbed, and I looked up at this bug-infested ceiling and just said, well, good night, and flipped the light off. And that was just one night on a run across America. So this is Run For It, an American adventure. This is a journey I took back in 2011 from April 2nd all the way through September 11th, so 5 months and about 9 days. And it was about 3,072 miles, coast to coast, Pacific to Atlantic. These are my shoes. I don't know where all of them are at this point. I know one of the pairs is hanging on a tree in Nevada. It's called the shoe tree. And the other ones are sort of, trunk of car, backyard. Occasionally see it in my room. This is the route. So it's going to be 11 states, I believe. Just want to walk through here. We got California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and finally New Jersey. We wrapped up in Atlantic City. I'm going to advance this here. So these are just some of the facts. It's Pacific to Atlantic, 3,072 miles, coast to coast, on foot, 5 months, 8 days, 9 days. My initial goal was about 150 miles a week. The longest single day was 40 miles. The longest stretch, what I consider, we got up and moved every day, covered 622 miles in 22 days, which is only 28 miles a day. So yeah, then begs the question of why. Why would somebody do this? And I'm sure that there are an infinite number of reasons for that. But for me, it was a very personal kind of journey. So I'm going to cover the hard part first, and then the rest will just be storytelling. So this is me, 2011. And this is just an image I think is useful for describing a particular set of feelings. So one night, this was 2009. One night in 2009, I was getting ready to go meet my mom for dinner, and I got a phone call before I left. and my mom had died in an accident. And, I remember falling on the floor, and I remember just kind of bursting into tears. I remember my dad picking me up and just kind of, it was just a nightmare. The world lost its color, right? There was food, I wasn't interested in food, and I wasn't eating. I couldn't sleep anymore. I stayed up just all night, every night for a while. And so this image to me is that place. So this is myself at the bottom of a pool, right? And these are your friends and your family, and they come and they're there and they do an amazing job, right? They give you hugs and they give you words of support, and they're incredible and they're awesome, and you appreciate that, but all of that it doesn't reach you. They're there, but they're out of the water. They're telling you things, but you can't hear them, right? They're up above the pool. You're just down here in the dark by yourself. And they try, and I love them for that, but this is what that was like. Let me hit the next slide here. This is my mom and my little brother and myself. Christmas time, I don't know when, sometime around then. Could have been 2008. Just so you can see us here, and my little brother had to go through this too. And normal family. They're having a good time. So this is the part, I can't really explain why this happened, but I was out, grieving. I was doing this thing. It was not super fun. I was having a hard time, and then, I had started running. My mom was a super runner, and I don't know, something to make me feel better. And I was out on one of these runs, and this is a part I don't know where this came from, but I was out, and it just occurred to me, like, gut check time. I need to get through this, and to do that, I need to do something big. I need to do something for my mom. It seems fitting. And so kind of right then, just rapid thought progression. I thought, well, she's a good runner. I could do a big run, right? And then just really rapidly, I was like, how far is far enough? A marathon, no. Ultramarathon, no. Across the state, no, okay, not bad. Across the country, okay. And so in about 10 seconds, I knew I was running across the country, and I knew that I had to make this choice. If I was doing this, I was at a fork in the road, and I needed to decide whether or not I was going down the left path and slowly dying. Am I just giving up? Am I broken now? Am I gonna go to work and live to however age live however long I do and just kind of get by? Or am I choosing the right path? Am I living? And if I am living, I'm living all the way. So running across America was about honoring my mom, but it was also about choosing the life I wanted to choose, which is not something I'd really done before. Not all the way, right? I went to school, I did the things that people said to do, but I was tired of living a life where I wasn't running across America. So I made that choice, and this is me all the time now. I see this choice. And that's all there is for me. I'm either giving up or I'm going for it. And that's where I started with this whole run. So day one, you gotta have your family walk you to the beach. This is in Aptos, California. We started at my dad's house, and so you just kind of see the parade of family. Step one, day one, gotta start out running the wrong direction. So first thing I did was head backwards out into the ocean. And these are the first steps on this 3,000-mile journey. These are people seeing me off here. Here's me across town or running. I had this friend of mine on a bike riding with me. Felt good. See how happy we are? Hey, we made the news. How about that? I like that line there. Aptos man sets out to run across the country and perhaps find himself along the way. That's a good line. I like it. A long and winding road is certainly true. Okay, we'll pick it back up from here. So this is day 2, morning of day 2. Nick, who had so helpfully volunteered to go with me, instead of letting me push a baby stroller across America with my stuff in it, he volunteered to go. Nick is he's an artist. It's an interesting guy, and he came along with me. That's a stack of pancakes in the middle. I'm a McHenry. We have pancake Sundays. My dad sent him over with a stack of pancakes, which is, you may not find so funny, but that's our family. So we started having adventures right away. This is California. The image on the left is just outside of Stockton. This is the first kind of actual storm we saw, and it was the first time I asked someone along the road if I might die, because there was thunder and lightning and hail. And we've all been through storms, but I was out in the flat. I was a little worried about myself. And on the right, that's my herd of cows. They started following me down the roadside. That's Altamont Pass. So, anyway, this is the end of week 1. We didn't get very far. My knees were killing me. Things were falling apart, but we made it. This is outside, I think, Clement, California, headed up into the Sierras. So, yeah, week 1 done. We spent the weekend in Davis. Instead of camping out, we drove back to Davis and took 2 days off hanging with a friend of mine. So this is me and Nick just taking a vacation. After that, we got back on the road and we started heading up through the Sierras. It started to snow a little bit. It started getting cold. And it kept snowing. And kept snowing. And yeah, so I found myself going up through the Sierras. No shoulder on the road, so I was climbing the snowbanks, trying to make progress. The altitude was increasing, right? We were getting over 6,000, 7,000 feet, and it was getting hard to breathe, so I was feeling really out of shape, really tired, and cold, but we're still having fun. As an adventure, this is something I'd never done before, and it was awesome. I was really enjoying hiking through the snow. And yeah, it kept right on snowing. Poor Nick had to sit in his car with the heater running and wait hours for some poor out of shape altitude runner to catch up with him. There's our logo, just frosted over. We took a break. Once we started getting up in the Sierras, we went to saw some caverns. Just fun, We did side things. We did tourist stuff. And this is the backside of the Sierras. We made it all the way up, and we're going now down to Tahoe. So this is looking out from the top. I should say, one of these nights we camped, actually the first night we camped, we pulled out our tent that we had hastily grabbed off the shelf in Target. It said 2-man tent, and we thought, 2 men, 2 of us, perfect. Pulled it out, and it was about 4 feet long. So I don't know what size adults it was made for, but it's clearly not us. And we were real snug. Like, we both could fit in the tent by curling up in balls and putting each other's knees in the other guy's face. So in the middle of the night, we got up and we used a knife to cut the wall off so that we could stick our legs out. And so we bought a new tent pretty quick after that. This is Tahoe. Made it. Ran to Tahoe. And of course, when you run to Tahoe, you got to do some hiking. It's Emerald Bay. And you got to do some snowboarding. Can't hurt. And then just like that, we went up and over and made it to Nevada. This is Carson City. After all that time in the snow, it was awesome to get here and see a rainbow. This is actually coming into town, so we got some sunshine, got to dry off a little bit. This is our first night in Carson City. The guy we were staying with from Airbnb, because this is the days of no iPhones. We were using a Google Map, not a Google Map, a road atlas, and sending emails. So when someone wasn't home, well, they weren't home. This is heading out into Nevada. So when we left a place called Fallon, there's nothing on the map until Ely, almost the other side of Nevada. So we really believed we were going to be by ourselves in the desert for about 350 miles. And we found out pretty quick that there's all kinds of little towns out there. So that was nice. We weren't so alone, but this is one of those storm nights early on. We didn't sleep, which is why Nick is here, passed out, and all our stuff is soaked, which is why it's laying out in the desert, drying. And I woke up to kind of some drips on my head, and I climbed out of the tent, and it was raining, and it had blown sideways, and it was filling up with water. Well, the wind was blowing, and it was so cold, my hands weren't functioning, and they were just freezing up. So I couldn't get the zipper on the tent to operate, and I couldn't get the stakes and the tent lines to untie. So I just found big rocks, and I threw them on top of the tent with Nick inside to keep it in place. And I was really hoping that I hadn't just sealed him to a watery death inside of a camping tent. But anyway, I jumped in the car by myself, and as I was passing out, Nick jumped in the car next to me. It was like, "Whoa, how about that storm?" Yeah. So this is the next morning when we're drying off, catching up on sleep. This is just a picture I like. Nevada roadside fire. We got to a place called Middlegate, and Middlegate was this kind of just oasis in the middle of the desert. It's a small community. You can see population of 17. I don't know what happened to the 18th guy, but here's Nick, and we spent Easter here, hanging out. The cast and crew was pretty unbelievable. The first night we were there, I was outside stretching at like 9 or 10 p.m. and the whole place closed up, but the people living here and running this bar, because that's what it is, it's a one-room bar restaurant, poked their head out and went, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm stretching." They're like, "Come on inside, let's get a drink." And so those guys just kind of kept the bar running all night long. And it was not an easy place to get any sleep, but it was a fun place to be. This is Sand Mountain. Just a really cool thing to go running past. At the bottom, you can barely see, those are all RVs. It's a city down there, and that's how large that sand dune is. This is me. Nevada is cold, really cold. That was the coldest day of the whole trip, I think. There's a howling wind, so I'm wearing almost every piece of clothing that I had packed. Man, was it cold. Here's my motorboat I found. Hot springs we found. Cinco de Mayo. I forget what mountain we're on, but Nevada turns out to be the most mountainous state. Didn't expect that. Here we are, two guys doing their thing. Nick's painting. I'm writing on our blog. This is a place called Baker. Had some really cool birds. I believe these are barn swallows. But anyway. And they also had more caverns. These are the Le Mans caverns. They're pretty cool. It was a huge attraction back through the 1800s. But anyway, sightseeing. And then we made it to Utah. So behind me is the Great Basin, and you can see how cloudy it is. Another rainy day. A lot of rain, a lot of cold, a lot of wind. But I guess I'm still stoked because I look like that. Here's having lunch on the roadside with our wind-up radio and our road atlas, trying to figure out where we are, where we're going. This is a place we camped in Utah. We're out in the Confusion Range. A lot of muddy tire tracks, and Nick decided to have a try, but got stuck. So he ended up getting towed out. He had adventures, while I was running down the roadside. So Utah, I think the best story I have here is after being out in the desert and rain and cold for, 3 weeks, we come strolling into this beautiful valley, and it's the town of Nephi. And it's green as far as I can see. And it looks amazing. We walk into the middle of it all, and I think this is a great image because it's so green on one side and it's so dead on the other side. It's this was sort of the kind of contrast this town had. It was a great sight for us because we were going to get to shower and clean off, things like that. But when we got into town, we did what we'd normally do at the time for us, which is make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in a grocery store parking lot and sit in our lawn chair. And a guy pulls up, gets out, and he goes, "Hey guys, so we don't do this here." So what do you mean? He's like, "Yeah, so you guys are from California." You know, he sees the license plate. He's like, "Well, this is Nephi, and we don't do these things here. Everyone sees you're from California, and you guys are dirty hippies." He's like, "You're not actually dirty hippies, but you know, your hair is a little long. Why not?" So he's like, "So if you stay here, you're gonna get arrested." He's like, "The cops are gonna search you. They're gonna find something, anything. I don't care if you don't have anything. They're gonna make something appear, and you're gonna go to jail." He's like, "And I don't want to see you guys go to jail. So tell you what, do you like beer and donuts?" Yeah, I mean, you know, we were trusting. So sure, who doesn't like beer and donuts? So he says, "I'm gonna go in the store, get beer and donuts, and when I come back, you can follow me to my house. And you don't have to come in. I'm a nice guy, but you don't have to come inside. You can eat lunch in my driveway. I just don't want to see you guys go to jail." So that was how we met Courtney Carter, and how we didn't go to jail. And I can't say they were there for us, but I can say that when we drove out of that parking lot, 3 or 4 cop cars were driving in the other side. And that's how we discovered Nephi. We spent the weekend there going to barbecues, and we learned a lot about what it is to be Mormon. There's the man himself in the back, Courtney Carter. While we were there, we went up, got to see Salt Lake. So it's just us being weird, you know, 2 guys from California. Salt Lake, it's salty, it's kind of what you imagine. This is a spot we camped in Utah. You kind of see snow on the mountains back there. It's just, you know, something to see. This may be the Utah we're all more familiar with. You know, stacks of rocks, neat looking mountains and things like that. Just me on the roadside. Toward the end of Utah, there's dinosaurs. It's kind of a big, the northeast corner of the state is sort of this dinosaur bone mecca. And yeah, so, you know, we got to see a few bones. And yeah, so we made it to Colorado. Colorado, really pretty state. I've got family here, so we were kind of looking forward to this part. We were going to take a break from all the travel. This is, you know, this is us being nerds, 2 guys from California. On the right there, we're over 3 states in now, so we were starting to miss surfing. We were surfers, so we started just kind of taking pictures on anything we could find to make look like a wave. So that's me getting shacked in a hotel room, getting barreled. It's kind of, we kept doing this through the whole trip. The first place we camped in Colorado happened to have this biker gang there, which made for a real cool experience. They were, you know, they were a biker gang. They behaved pretty much exactly like you would imagine. We watched a great bear of a man scream at this woman. They screamed at each other, top of their lungs, over something, I don't know. But it was, you know, I was a little bit worried for one of them, but nothing happened. They just yelled a lot. And then that great big man turned right around, walked over to us and said, "Hey guys, you want some of this watermelon? Gotta stay hydrated." So that's, I don't know, that's America to me. Somewhere in Colorado, another spot in Colorado. More Colorado. This is going up towards Steamboat Springs. This is in Steamboat Springs, which is a town we probably could have stayed in forever. We used an Airbnb. We happened to stay with a guy who was just super nice, and his friends were all really welcoming. So we played volleyball and had barbecues and bonfires and sat in hammocks. And maybe, you know, it was kind of sad to leave, but we had to get out of there because we had to go up the Rockies. So we saw, what was that thing? It's a porcupine. There we go. I was going to say hedgehog, but it's a porcupine. We saw mooses, a moose. Saw hummingbirds. Saw the Rockies. This is a cool photo because it's the only photo, one of the only photos of me actually running on this trip. Nick was not a cameraman. Took terrible photos, so I had to take almost all of them myself. So thus you see a lot more Nick. Anyway, this is going up into the Rocky Mountains, and the cool thing about this is after the Sierras, I was so acclimatized that I didn't notice the altitude at all. I had no trouble going up here. We went over 10,000 feet. Didn't notice. This is a picture of that spot, Cameron Pass. Hard to see up there, but it's 10,276 feet. So that's the highest point of the trip. This is actually between the Rockies, so there's a set of mountains ahead of and behind us in this great gigantic meadow up inside there. And a lot of mooses running around. Sneaky animals. For a long time I just kept seeing like one leg or half of it. I was like, what are these? And then finally I saw a whole moose. It's impressive that you can hide a whole moose so easily. This is, we made it through the Rockies. So there's a celebratory photo. And then on the other side, we were in Loveland, Colorado. And this is a lot of my family out there. So we played bingo. We played music. This is my little brother. He's getting shacked here on a wave. He's dropping in with us. So, taking hikes, seeing Colorado for what it is. We had 4th of July out there. Good 4th of July. Wyoming has great fireworks, and it was real close, so one of my better ones. The rest of Colorado is a lot like this. A lot of rattlesnakes, a lot of fields. Nice spot to be. And then we had to choose between Kansas or Nebraska. And based on pretty much nothing, we decided to go with Nebraska. And it is the place it promises to be. Nebraska is a lot about corn. Nick's working on paintings. I included several pictures of stuff he's working on here. So this is what he had going on the roadside while I was out doing a lot of running. It makes you weird. And there's cornfields. Nick cruising by. Nebraska had this really weird thing called cruise night. And when we got into the state, for about 150 miles, everyone we met was talking about cruise night. You gotta go to cruise night, you gotta go to cruise night, you gotta go. So, okay, we took their advice, and one night we set up camp, we jumped in the car and drove up to this place called Kearney. And we were wandering around, asking people, hey, we're looking for cruise night. And people are like, well, this is it. This is cruise night. So it turns out that cruise night is this thing everyone looks forward to, where they all, from, I don't know, maybe a 100, 200 mile radius, everybody goes to this town and sits in lawn chairs along the main street. And it's it. It's just people driving their muscle cars, old cars, pickup trucks loaded with people up and down in sort of a long circle all day. So yeah, a lot of hype. Pretty funny to actually see. But we met these break dancers, so we hung out with them. It was a pretty good time. This is, I don't know, one night, couldn't sleep. I don't know what they are. There's sirens that go off randomly, and for two guys from California, it makes you think that maybe there's a tornado coming. And none ever actually showed up. But after you hear that go off, it's sometimes hard to go back to sleep and calm down, especially when it's really windy. So I was just screwing around with the camera this night. So I don't know what we're camped next to, but it looks like a silo of some sort. That's a full-on double rainbow, which I don't know if you're familiar with YouTube. You can't really see it up here as well as on the computer, but yeah, saw one, so check. There's Nick riding the curl on the left. He's got a sweet wave there. And we saw an art museum. This is all in Lincoln, Nebraska. When we attempted to leave Lincoln, Nebraska, now we've been hearing about this across the whole state too, that the bridge was underwater. And I thought, okay, well, it's the Missouri River, so I'll probably just swim across it. I'm a surfer guy from Santa Cruz. But when we got there, we found, it is really flooded. I don't know how much you can tell from here, but there's a river kind of in the foreground, and then there's flooding almost as far as you can see in this shot. So if I wasn't swimming in a current, I was going to be wading in chest-deep water through cornfields, and we just realized, no way, not going to happen. So we had to find another way. That's how underwater things were. So I used this train bridge, and I got yelled at, but I was faster than the person yelling at me, so I made it. And it was like 4-mile crossing, something like that. It was the width of the river after the flooding. This is kind of my cell phone picture of that part of the journey. I was following the railroad tracks, which were sandbags, so it was dry. But I took the railroad all the way out to Iowa. And Nick had to take the state picture by himself this time because I was out in the middle of the water. The next time I saw Nick, he had a mohawk. He had decided to get his hair cut right there in Iowa. Having a mohawk in Iowa, probably not the best in terms of meeting people and having them be friendly with you, but that's okay. We liked camping. Iowa was really pretty. Not something I expected to find there, but there were a lot of flowers everywhere. You know, more Iowa. Gotta have sunscreen. Saw our friend Emily. Oddly, was out there doing a law school internship of some sort. So she took us around. Was a great host. Saw the sculpture park. Cool sculptures. Saw good Vietnamese food. Saw the botanical gardens. You know, the biodome here. This is, you know, cactus, all that. Swam in the river. We were still alive, so it was probably fine. We got a brand new decal for the car. So we're official now. My aunt did that, came in the mail. Our magnets had fallen off, so but anyway, that was looking pretty solid. And when you get official, you get on the news. So this is Ottumwa, Iowa. One of the things that happened here was Nick met a guy sitting on the roadside who let us sleep in his driveway. And it would take anything we can get. And when we got up in the morning, there was a team of roofers on his house, and they were like, "Oh, you guys going across America?" And they're like, "We'll get you on the news." So they all started making phone calls, and before we knew it, they were like, how soon can you get to this town? It was 7 miles away. I said, "Maybe an hour." It's like, "Okay, we got you on the news in an hour." So we went down there, got on the news. When we were done with that, they put us on the radio, and the radio guy knew the newspaper. So in this one town, we were on the news, on the radio, and in the newspaper all in the same day. So they let us screw around with their studio. So, you know, we had fun as much as we could. Just two guys from California. This is one of Nick's paintings. I don't know what he's thinking about here. I just think it's neat that this adventure was inspiring this work. So it's neat. The other end of Iowa, the eastern end, was a place called Burlington. We met this guy, Bob Saar. Bob Saar is just an amazing human. He is a lot of energy all the time. And he's promoting a book tour called David's Buick, in memory of David's Buick for his book. And this is the car from the book. So we got to play around with it. Of course, he said, "You guys want to be in a video?" And, you know, the answer to that is probably yes, for us, why not? This is Bob's house, you can see here. And anyway, they let Nick drive this real nice car. They let us hang out in this real nice car. He had a great guitar. It's a 50s Les Paul. So for me, I like guitars a lot. It was that was cool. I enjoyed that. This is Bob's house, doing some video editing. This is The Mess from a small restaurant there in town. It's a lot of calories, American cheese, tons of hash browns, tons of eggs, all that stuff. Worth getting, awesome. Then it came time to leave Iowa. We had to head over to Illinois. And that meant crossing the Mississippi. So I had to do that in style with a Spider-Man costume. So here we go. We are officially leaving Iowa, arriving in Illinois. That was fun. So, you know, Illinois, more corn. We met this guy at a gas station. He was a worker there in Illinois. It's one of those states where the gas station serves pizza, serves donuts. You know, there's somewhat of a restaurant / gas station, right? So he was a cook for the gas station. And Denny Skaggs grew massive tomatoes. He was also a pretty interesting artist. So him and Nick got along. Denny Skaggs' house was covered in art, inside and out. He just did these drawings. He left us with a bucket of tomatoes, so we were eating tons of them. He also gave us tons of fish and deer, catfish, things like that. So we were doing a lot of fish fries every night. Here's Nick with one of his paintings. Here's me before and after one of those storms where I'm just tired, I'm soaked. But I found this little flag, and I still have it, which is kind of cool. And then we were done with Illinois. It's time to head over to Indiana soon. This did happen, though. This is a picture of my feet on the ground with less than 1,000 miles to go. Now we're in Indiana. Indiana was one of my least favorites for running because of this. This is a picture of the bike lane across the entire state where barely my feet fit inside. So I was in the bushes a lot, made for hard running, long days, but the state was only 150 miles across, so we were there less than 5 days. Here's one of those storms, and I took this picture. I was hiding under a semi-trailer in the parking lot because it was brutal. And just like that, we made it to Ohio. Here we are being two guys from California. Stayed in a hotel room. It's nice to get a shower once in a while. This is Larry Schweikert. He's the author of a book, and when you're running across America, you realize people are willing to meet with you because you're doing a crazy thing. So we met this PhD author, came down from the university and bought us lunch and told us about the American dream. He wrote, Patriots' History of America. It's kind of a counter to People's History of America. There's a debate there. But anyway, this is a guy we met who was an author. And he told us to go to the Air Museum, which if you're ever in Ohio, you should do. I'm glad I did. A lot of airplanes, all eras, all ages, all types. Who gave Nick a nuke? I don't know. And then on the right, that's part of the Berlin Wall. There's another painting. I don't know what's going on with this either, but it's cool. Came from our trip somehow. Here's one of those famous storms going over, swallowing the sun. It's going to be dark on the right real soon. This is in the middle of Ohio. Interesting. Nice lakes in Ohio. Real blue. I've asked about this. Why are they so blue? Are they dye them? And nobody knows what I'm talking about from Ohio. So, I don't know. Maybe it was just the lakes we saw. Real nice blue. Bought new shoes. First time on the trip I had to buy new shoes. I think this is my 5th pair. 6 total we used. Nick had started painting the inside of his car as well. A lot of hours he spent on the side of the road. And then we were done with Ohio. We made it. This is Pittsburgh, Heinz Stadium on the upper left. And we're into Pennsylvania now. Another shot of Pittsburgh. Sometimes the road just goes on forever. Me and Nick. I love this picture because I think this is one of the most honest pictures on the trip. This is exactly how we were feeling. We stayed at the Economy Inn, and it was as rusty and green as its rusty green sign. And we were just tired. We met this guy, David Sylvester, still a friend of mine. He rides his bike across continents, spreads high five and hugs, cheer, goodwill, love. Came riding up alongside me on the road. So he was a great guy, kind of a mentor at the time for doing this sort of thing. He was telling me about how it was going to change me and how my life was going to be different. And I don't know that I believed him at the time, but I certainly believe him now. So anyway, Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania. Got to run through Gettysburg. Kind of cool. Check off these things that I've now run to. It's fun to say. This is Philadelphia on the other end of Pennsylvania, looking back from Camden, New Jersey. So New Jersey, we're on the home stretch. This is us. We're crossing a bridge here. I had friends starting to come visit. Looking back at Philadelphia. Here we are, Garden State, New Jersey. Garden State, oh yeah. Last night of the trip, my uncle put us up in this really nice hotel room. This is the last morning of the trip, and I'll show you more of these later. This is I did a project. I wanted to show how my body changed, and I'll give you an image of that later. But last morning, and the last day, my friends came out from all over the country, joined me, and I misled them. I thought we only had a couple miles left, but they ended up doing over 6 miles with me, which I'm really impressed with these guys because didn't run much. Came out. One of them did it in hiking boots. Here's us. You can see in the distance is the high rises from the beach. And just like that, we did it. We came over a sand dune, and there was the Atlantic. It's actually the last thing you could see. We were hearing beach, smelling beach, sand dune in front of us, buildings, sand dune, sand dune, sand dune over the top, and there was the water. And so we did it. These two guys from California, we made it.
me taking a load off. My feet were so tender at this point that it actually hurt to walk in the sand barefoot. And it's just, me and Nick taking it in. And then on the way back, we traveled to New York, saw the sights. They're rebuilding the World Trade Center, sightseeing. Saw Washington, D.C., and then we drove rapidly back across the country. Oh, this is what I was talking about. This is my, day one on the left and day 159 or so on the right. So that was difference of 3,000 miles in 5 months. Lost 15 pounds or so. Got a killer farmer's tan. That persisted to this day, actually. So then we were done. And well, what happened to those two guys? I heard they started a rock and roll band. And if you listen real hard, you can hear them rocking to this day. No, I'm just kidding. We did start a band. Nick is still in the band. And one of us had to go on to med school. So anyway, they're still going. So they're still out there. And I just wanted to emphasize that on this trip, this is a way for me to turn the worst thing that ever happened to me into this experience that I could continue to draw from in my life, and it carries me forward, and it's changed everything. And on this trip, I was tired, I was sore, I was exhausted, right? My mind was not into it every day. I didn't want to be there every day. Some days we didn't sleep, but I came to think of myself actually as three people: a mind, a body, and a spirit, right? Some days I was so sore in my body, but I felt like exploring, I felt like running, and my mind would just carry me, right? I felt good. Some days I was exhausted, but my body felt good, and when I start running, it would just kind of carry me, and I would start to feel better, right? So just for you, anyone listening, I want to reinforce that you should remember that you're not one person, you're three people. And if you just keep going, one of those people gets up in the morning and carries the other two with it. So you're never really out of gas. You just start taking steps. And, after running across America, just taking one step at a time, I think now I can do anything. And so can you, right? That's the point. Take it from me, after going through this journey, you can do anything if you just start taking the steps and then never look back. Thank you.